I'm Ethan. I'm 9 years old and I live in a small town called Tyler in East Texas. A peaceful place with lots of trees, families who know each other by name, and where the sound of crickets at night seems like music. That day, June 17th, the sky was different. I remember looking out the kitchen window and seeing dark clouds gathering as if they were in a hurry to hide the sun. My older brother, Lucas, who was 12, said a big storm was coming, but I didn't care. I just wanted to play outside before the rain started. We ran to the lake near our house, one of those shallow lakes that looks more like a giant puddle, where parents tell you not to go near it when the weather is bad. But kids don't listen very well to advice when they're excited. I stepped on a slippery rock, and in a second the ground disappeared. My body fell hard into the icy water. I struggled, but the current was stronger than I could handle. The storm had turned the lake into a silent monster. I remember the muffled sound of water invading my ears, my brother's scream becoming a distant echo. And then, nothing. It was as if the world had pressed the pause button. I no longer felt cold, nor fear, just silence. A deep silence, as if everything had stopped. Afterwards, I was told that my heart stopped for 6 minutes. But to me, it felt like I had entered another time, another place. What happened next changed everything. My life, my way of seeing the world, and maybe yours too. But before we continue, if this story has touched something inside you, if you felt that chill or a curiosity that you can't explain, consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like. It's not just a click. It's a way of showing that stories like this still matter. Now, I need to tell you what I saw after my heart stopped. The water was pulling me as if it had hands. Cold, heavy hands that dragged me down slowly. I tried to scream, but the water entered my mouth, and that's when I understood no one could hear me there. My arms felt heavy, my eyes burned, and suddenly everything went dark, not just around me, but inside me, as if the world had shut down, leaving only an echo far, far away. My brother's scream. Lucas. I remember his voice. He screamed my name with a heartbreaking desperation. At the surface, they said he jumped into the water without thinking. He tried to pull me out. He screamed for help. My father came running, and soon after the paramedics. But when they managed to pull me out of the water, my body was limp, pale, and my chest motionless. My heart had stopped. The paramedics began CPR right there on the wet ground, with thunder roaring overhead. They used a defibrillator twice, nothing. My mother came running, slipping in the mud, screaming as if her voice would wake me. I was there, lying on the ground of the world. But at the same time, I wasn't there anymore. As my body was shocked and pounding in my chest, I felt like I was floating, but not in water. I was above it all, floating, seeing, hearing. I saw my brother crying, my father on his knees, the paramedics working in a hurry, and in a corner to my mother, trembling, muttering a prayer in a broken voice, and then silence. Not the silence of death, but a kind of silence that soothes, as if I had been enveloped by something or someone. It was as if the world below was getting further and further away, and I felt lighter, and that's when I saw it. A light, not just any ordinary light. It was as if it had life, color, heat, all at the same time, and it was calling me. I didn't know where I was going, but for the first time I felt no fear, none at all. It was the beginning of something, impossible to explain with words. It's strange to see your own body as if it's no longer yours. I was floating above the scene. I could see everything clearly. My body lying motionless on the ground, my mother's desperate face, the sweat on the paramedics' necks. And the strangest thing, I felt no pain. None. There was no more weight in my arms, no more fear in my heart. It was as if I had been separated from it all, as if my soul was just watching. I thought, did I die? But it wasn't a sad question. It was more like a realization. And even without fully understanding it, I felt a peace I had never felt before. Then the light appeared again. It was a white light, intense, but it didn't hurt the eyes. It didn't shine like the sun. It seemed to breathe, to vibrate, as if it had a rhythm, a heart of its own. And once again, she called me, not with words. It was like a deep feeling impossible to ignore. Like when someone you love very much says, "Come here, it's okay." I began to move toward this light, not with my feet, because I no longer had a body. It was as if I was being pulled from within. Like a magnet, a gentle but irresistible force. As I got closer, an indescribable feeling took over me. It was love, but not like the love we feel here. It was a greater love, absolute, perfect. The light enveloped me, not like a hug. It was more than that. It was like I had come home. And then, for a brief moment, everything I was, felt, thought, or experienced seemed small compared to that. There, floating between two worlds, I knew something extraordinary was beginning. When I stepped through the light, I thought I would find only white, a calm void, perhaps. But what I saw was so beautiful that to this day I wonder if my mind was able to understand it all. It was a garden, but not like the ones we see here. The flowers had colors that do not exist on Earth. Some glowed, others moved as if they were breathing. And the most incredible thing, they sang. Yes, the flowers sang, in soft voices, as if they were in harmony with the air, with the light, with everything. The ground seemed to be made of golden grass, and the sky had gently changing hues, as if it were an eternal sunset. There was no visible sun, but everything was illuminated. Everything had life. I walked, or rather, moved, without having to move my legs. I just thought about going, and I went. It was as if the place understood what I felt. And then, I felt I was not alone. I felt presences all around me. Tall beings, of pure light, who had no face but transmitted peace. They did not speak with their mouths, but I heard everything inside me, as if the communication was direct between their hearts and mine. One of them came closer, and somehow I knew he knew me, that he knew my every thought, every moment of my life. He led me down a path of trees that looked like they were made of crystal, and in the background, there was a fountain of water that flowed in the form of liquid light. There, in that moment, I knew that the place where I was not a dream. It was real, more real than anything I had ever experienced. And if you've ever had a moment when you felt something you couldn't explain, a chill, a memory, an invisible presence, write in the comments. Sometimes what we feel is more real than what we see, because what comes next goes beyond any explanation. The path of crystal trees led to an open field, where everything seemed to breathe in perfect harmony. The air there was not like the air here. It was lighter, more alive. I felt each particle entering me like a melody. I was not walking, I was floating in silence. A silence full of meaning. And that's when I heard it. Not with my ears, but inside me, as if my soul was hearing it for the first time. A voice without sound, without words, but which I understood with absolute clarity. She enveloped me with a sweetness I had never felt before. It was as if she was telling me, "You are safe. You are loved. You always have been." I tried to look around, but there was no one there. Yet I knew that presence that spoke to me was everywhere. In the light, in the wind, in the grass beneath my feet, in the sky above. It was as if the place itself was a living consciousness. The voice started showing me things, not projected images, but memories I felt again. As if I were reliving everything. The day I learned to ride a bike, the night I cried in secret because my parents fought, the time I stole a sweet from the kitchen and felt guilty for days. I felt it all again, but without pain, without shame. The voice showed me my life like a movie, but a movie told with love. There was no judgment, only understanding. And then the voice showed me something that made me tremble inside, moments I didn't even remember, small things, simple gestures, like when I hugged a sad classmate at school, or when I shared my snack with someone who was hungry. The voice made me feel the impact of it, as if these small acts had created waves of light in the world. It was there that I understood. Nothing we do for love is small. I asked without speaking, "Who are you?" The answer came like a soft explosion inside my chest. "I am the one who has always been with you. In your smiles, in your falls, in your silences. I am love." At that moment I cried, but it wasn't a cry of sadness. It was a cry of relief, as if all the doubts, fears, and pain had been washed away from me, and for the first time I thought, maybe I don't want to go back. But the journey was not over yet, and what would come next would put me in front of the most difficult decision of my life. I wanted to stay. Everything inside me screamed for it. In that place I felt no fear, no pain, no doubts. It was as if everything I was looking for was there, whole, clear, eternal. But the voice, that presence made of love, told me something that broke my heart in silence. It's not your time yet. My first impulse was to refuse. Why? Why go back to a place where people cry, are afraid, fight with each other? I didn't want to lose that. I didn't want to say goodbye to the peace that enveloped me like a blanket of light. It was then that, without warning, I saw someone appearing in that golden field. She walked slowly, her arms open wide, and even before I saw her face, my heart knew. It was my grandmother, Grandma Mary. She had died 2 years before, and I still dreamed of her sometimes. But here, she was more alive than ever. Her face was unlined, she was radiant, and when she hugged me, it was like going back in time. I could smell her lap, the apple pie she made, her laughter. "You're fine, my boy," she said, looking me in the eyes, "but you must go back. Your journey is not over yet." "But I don't want to go back," I replied, without speaking. She smiled sadly. "If you stayed, you would miss out on what is yet to come, and the world would miss out on what you have to give." Those words echoed inside me, because somehow I knew they were true. The presence returned, and this time the sensation was stronger, as if it were showing me not the past, but the future, fragments of what was yet to come. My family crying for me, my brother blaming himself, my mother praying with her hands on her heart. And then I saw something else. Me, years later, standing, telling what I had experienced. I saw emotional faces, people finding hope in my words, hearts changing. I realized maybe that was my mission, to tell what I saw, to bring that light back to where it had almost gone out. I looked at my grandmother, and she nodded her eyes. And then, without understanding how, I said goodbye, a goodbye that hurt more than anything I had ever felt. The light began to fade, and peace became further away, until everything went out. And when I opened my eyes, I felt the weight of my body again. The first thing I felt was the weight of my own body, my lungs trying to suck in air, my chest burning as if it had been reanimated from within with fire. My eyes were still closed, but I heard everything, agitated voices, machines beeping, suppressed cries. After so much silence, the noise of the world was frightening. I tried to move my fingers, then my hand, and then I opened my eyes. Cold hospital lights, a nurse shouting something, my father clutching my hand as if I would escape again, and my mother. Oh my God, my mother. She fell to her knees beside the bed, tears that seemed to last a lifetime. "Ethan's awake. Oh my God, he's back." I didn't understand it all yet. My body was tired, as if I had been running for hours, but my heart was beating with new strength, as if each beat said, "You still have time." One of the doctors rushed in, his eyes wide. 6 minutes without a heartbeat. "And he came back with normal brain activity," he murmured, as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. They asked me a bunch of questions. If I remembered who I was, what happened. I just looked around, took a deep breath, and said the only thing that made sense. "I saw the sky." The nurse froze. My father squeezed my fingers, and I continued, my voice weak but firm. "I was there, with Grandma Mary. There was light, flowers that sang, and a voice." The adults exchanged glances, some with tenderness, others with skepticism, but no one interrupted me. The doctor examined me again. She ran tests, looked at charts. Everything indicated that I must be in a coma or with severe neurological damage, but there was nothing there. I was whole, alive, and more than that, transformed. Something inside me had changed. I was no longer just the boy who fell into the lake. Now, I was the boy who came back from there, with something to tell. In the days that followed, the hospital became a visiting point. Nurses, doctors, and even patients from other floors showed up, curious to see the boy who came back. But that wasn't all. People said there was something different about me, and I felt it too. I was no longer in a hurry, no anxiety. It was as if time had slowed down inside me. I paid attention to small things, like the sound of the wind blowing against the window, or the silent tear on my mother's face when she thought I wasn't looking. When I got home, nothing looked the same. My bed, my toys, my smells, everything seemed more fragile, as if life had become a delicate thing that we had to handle with care. I looked at my family and thought, they don't know how precious all this is. I started having trouble with simple things, Like seeing someone fighting on TV or hearing cruel jokes at school. It was like my heart had become more sensitive, like I felt other people's pain more deeply. One night, I had a nightmare. I saw people screaming, crying, alone in dark places. I woke up sweating with a tight chest. I ran to my parents' room and said, "Mom, there are a lot of people out there who don't know that God loves them." She looked at me scared. She knelt down and hugged me tightly. I continued, "I need to tell them. I have seen true love, and no one should live without knowing that this love exists." I began to draw what I remembered: gardens of light, trees that sang, my grandmother's smiling face. Each line seemed to pull something from inside me that I still couldn't say out loud. At school, my teachers said I was calmer, more mature. My classmates looked at me differently, some with admiration, others with suspicion. And that's okay, not everyone understands. The pastor of the local church, Reverend Thomas, came to visit me. He sat down next to me and asked me how I was feeling. I said, "God does not shout. He whispers with love, and whoever listens is never the same again." He was silent for a while, and then he said something I never forgot. "Maybe you came back not just to live, but to remind us how to live." At that moment, I knew my story was just beginning, and the world was about to listen. It didn't take long for my drawings to start attracting attention. At first, they were just leaves scattered around the house, scribbles of glowing flowers, people made of light, floating gardens. But there was something about them, something that even adults stopped to notice, as if each stroke said more than my words could. One day I drew a corridor of crystal trees. I gave it to my father. He looked at it silently with tears in his eyes and then said, "Did you really see that, Ethan?" And I just replied, "With my heart." I started writing too. Short sentences, sometimes just single words, but full of feeling. Things like, "The love there cures any pain here. Whoever hears the silence of the sky never screams inside again. Nothing we do for love is forgotten." My mum started saving everything in a folder. He said that one day it would become a book. But while the world seemed to go on at the same pace as always, my inner world expanded with each memory. I felt I needed to share it, that keeping it to myself would be like hiding a candle in the dark. It was then that Reverend Thomas spoke to a local journalist named Claire Whitmore. She wrote humanities stories for the Tyler newspaper and was always looking for stories that touched the heart. She came to our house with a notebook and a tape recorder, expecting to find just another curious case. But when she heard me speak, she cried, "You speak like a wise old man trapped in a boy's body," he said, laughing with red eyes. She wrote an article called "The Boy Who Touched the Sky." It came out in the Sunday paper with one of my illustrations on the cover. That same day, letters started arriving. People from other cities were calling. People said they felt something just by reading my words. A woman wrote saying that she was in deep depression, about to give up on life, but that after reading about me, she had the strength to carry on. She said she felt for the first time in years that God still saw her. There I realized I hadn't come back just for myself. I had come back for them. Every person who reads, who feels, who cries, who reconnects with faith is like a part of heaven returning to earth. And I'm just the messenger. I still thought it was all too big for me, but after the newspaper story spread, my story crossed Tyler's borders. First came the invitations for interviews on local radio stations, then regional channels, and then a producer from New York called my parents. They wanted to put me on a national TV show. "A boy who claims to have gone to heaven? That will move the country," they said. My parents were hesitant. They didn't want to expose me, much less turn my experience into a spectacle, but I asked to go not because I liked the cameras, but because I knew that somehow I needed to tell the story. Even if only one person really listened, it would be worth it. We went to New York. I had never seen so many tall buildings. Everything seemed big, busy, noisy, so different from the silent garden that still inhabited my memory. In the studio, the lights were bright, the scenery colorful, and people treated me like I was a little walking miracle. But to me, I was still just Ethan. The presenter smiled sympathetically, but with that curious tone of someone who doesn't know whether to believe it or not. "Ethan, you say you were in heaven. Can you tell us what you saw?" And then, as I had done so many times before, I closed my eyes for a second and began. I spoke of the flowers that sang, of the crystal trees, of the presence of light that surrounded me. of the voice that spoke to my heart, of my grandmother smiling. I told how I came back for love, how I felt I still had something to do here. The studio went silent, and for a moment, it seemed like even the monitors stopped blinking. When I opened my eyes, the presenter was in tears. She didn't ask anything else. She just said, "Thank you, Ethan, for reminding us." The interview went viral. Millions of views in just a few days. Emotional comments, people saying they started praying again, believing again, feeling hope. But along with that came the others. Skeptics, bloggers, experts saying it was all made up, hallucinations, the imagination of a boy influenced by religious beliefs. Some said my parents were using my story to make money, which was a lie. We never asked for anything. We didn't even want fame. At school, some of my classmates started to laugh at me. They called me angel boy, God's liar, boy from heaven. It hurt, but I learned that when you carry light, there will always be someone who tries to extinguish it. And even with all of this, I didn't regret anything, because I knew the truth doesn't need defending. It just needs to be told. And I was just telling what I saw. Over time, I realized that telling the truth doesn't always make people believe you. After the interview spread, different messages started arriving. Some full of love, hope, gratitude, others not so much. That boy is a trained actor. This is religious brainwashing. His parents are using him to gain fame. NDEs are explainable by science. None of this is real. These words came from everywhere. Comments on the internet, emails, even phone calls. Some people sent videos of experts trying to dismantle everything I had experienced. At first, it hurt me. I thought, am I doing something wrong just by telling what I saw? But my mother looked me in the eyes firmly and said, "Son, when Jesus spoke the truth, he was also rejected. Speaking with love is an act of courage." Reverend Thomas explained to me that faith is like a flame. It illuminates, it warms, but it also disturbs those who live in darkness, and that my story was not meant to convince, it was meant to touch. Even so, the criticism began to weigh on our routine. We had to turn down invitations, avoid reporters, and protect our home. My parents grew tired. My mother would cry silently at times, thinking she had exposed me too much. I tried to cheer her up. I said, "If just one person finds God again because of what I've told you, it's all worth it." It was during this time that I received a letter. It came from a hospital in Denver. It was from a girl named Lily, who was 15 years old. She had terminal cancer. In the letter, she said, "I was afraid of dying until I saw your video. Now I know that love awaits me. Thank you, Ethan. You have given me peace." The letter came with a drawing of hers, a garden, and in the middle of it, flowers that sang. There, something inside me sparked again. I started writing to people like Lily. I would record short videos with words of hope. I would say, "Don't be afraid. Death is not the end. I've been there." And love. Love is greater than any pain. These videos began to circulate, and more people came with doubts, with faith, with tears. And I was there, always with the same certainty. I saw the sky, and no matter how much they try to silence me, I will keep saying it. Time passed. I grew up. But that June afternoon never left me. Today I'm 17 years old, and sometimes, when I walk along the trails in the woods near my home, I still smell the light. I still hear, somewhere in my memory, the soft song of the flowers. I still carry the warmth of that hug I received before returning. The difference is that now I understand. At the time, I thought I had come back because of the love of my family, the mission to share a message, the pain of the world that needed healing, and all of that was true. But there was something bigger, something that only time has revealed. I came back to remember what we forgot. We forget that time here is short. May every gesture of kindness echo in the invisible, that our words can be bridges, or wounds, that the soul feels what the mouth does not say, that love, when it is true, survives until death. We forget that life is not just about surviving, it is about surrendering. Over the years, I have received thousands of letters. I visited hospitals, schools, churches. I've been hugged by people I've never seen before, but who say I'm part of their lives. I just tell my story, but somehow they say it reconnects them with something bigger. And then I realized it's not me. It is the memory of heaven that speaks through me. Lily, the girl from the hospital, passed away months after she wrote to me. But before she left, she recorded a video. With a scarf on her head, her eyes serene, she said, "If heaven is like what Ethan saw, I'm not afraid anymore. And if I don't come back, I promise to tell them what I saw." I cried, because I understood that what I experienced was not a privilege, it was a calling. And that's why I wrote a book, recorded these videos, and continue to answer every letter with the same truth I saw in that golden field. You are not alone. You never were. Maybe you've lost someone. Maybe you're struggling with emptiness. Or maybe you've just forgotten what it's like to feel peace, but I promise you there is a place where it all makes sense, where pain doesn't exist, where no one is invisible, and where love is absolute. And do you know what surprised me most about that place? It wasn't the flowers that sang, nor the crystal trees. It was realizing that heaven wasn't a prize for having lived right, but a reunion with who we always were inside. You don't have to die to start living with purpose. You just need to remember, every choice you make echoes into eternity. So if you've come this far, if you felt something inside you, no matter how small, share it, comment, send it to someone. Not because it's my story, but because it could be the awakening of yours. And if one day you wonder if there is something after this life, remember the boy from Tyler, Texas, who died for 6 minutes and came back to tell, paradise exists, and it is waiting for us, with love. And if this story touched your heart, what comes next will give you even more chills. The next video is already on your screen. Click and continue with me on this journey. There's something there that you need to hear.